Welcome to another edition of the Inside the Hatches Senior Bowl special. We're live here at the Senior Bowl. I'm Jerome Jones, and we got a host of great guys right here. We got Sam. How you doing, Sam?
What's up, Jerome? How's it going?
Doing great, doing great. We got Chris. What's going on, Chris?
What's going on, peoples?
We got Lamarcus, and we got Luke. How you doing, Luke?
All good. Good to be with you, Jerome.
Luke Weston's a guest on here. We are down here live from the Senior Bowl. We're at the Convention Center right now. So we're doing some cool stuff right now with this little setup right here. We got a little cool little setup right here. But we're gonna talk about all Senior Bowl. Tomorrow is the game. We have a little downtime right now. It's Friday, so we want to put a little light onto what we think about the last three practices. So first and foremost, we're gonna get right into it with the quarterbacks. So let's start with Luke. Let's see. Was there some quarterbacks that kind of stood out to you, sir?
Frankly, none of them really stood out. I was not a fan of this quarterback group, but if I had to pick one, I thought Jake Hayner made a few throws. I thought he improved throughout the week. So I'll go with Hayner. Max Duggan from TCU, maybe a close second, but just not a good group this week in quarterbacks. Not any guys here that I would pick above the fourth round outside, or above the fifth round even, outside of Hendon Hooker. Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of would say similar. As far as quarterback group, it's not one of the stronger groups this year. So making sure we don't overcompensate for the lack of talent. I think that Max Duggan, like Luke said, is a guy that is still to watch. See how he performs on game day. But however, it's just learning these new systems, these new pro style systems. It's a little difficult for quarterbacks to really explode on the map, or unless they've already kind of built up a reputation for themselves. So yeah, I would say this group not one of the big points this year.
I think one of the hardest things about the Senior Bowl is kind of hard to evaluate the quarterback position because if you haven't seen their tape already, it's kind of really hard for you to showcase because when you do these 7-on-7s, when you do these 11-on-11s, more often than not, 80% of the time, you're doing checkdowns. But the only interesting quarterback that I probably saw was definitely Malik Cunningham from Louisville. I think he definitely has the skill set to transition to the NFL. It's a lot more fast in the NFL. He definitely has the speed. And back when I saw the practice, like that ball was thrown probably the hardest out of any quarterback in there. So I definitely see a team that could, take a third, like a fourth round flyer on him. Kind of similar to what Malik was last year, but however, I feel like Cunningham is a much better prospect considering the level of competition he played this year was a lot better.
Yeah, for me, I mean, Luke kind of hit it on it just a few minutes ago, but the best quarterback here was not actually playing. It was Hendon Hooker. He was on the sideline, and I give him a lot of credit for still being here. You could see him yesterday walking around, leading, talking to the quarterback room, really being present there. And I think that was a thing that he did in order to just show his leadership skills and show that he's that type of guy and he's going to be just fine, even if he needs a little bit of recovery time after he's drafted. But for me, I think one guy that we should really give some notice to here is Tyson Banga. He's the starter for Shepherd University. He actually played pretty decently this week. People got to remember this guy. This is a guy who started every game in the last 5 seasons, and he's thrown for 5,000 yards in his college career. So, that's a pretty prolific career. And a lot of people are going to hate on quarterbacks being here. It's tough to really shine, but at that same time, I think a lot of them did a good job leading huddles this week, being loud, commanding, and I'm excited for the game on Saturday. See what they do.
Definitely. We got our first comment in here. We got our guy Don. He says, "Yo, what's going on, Don? Thanks for coming in here. Appreciate you, sir." What's going on, Don? But yeah, so the your three guys right here, being Chris, Lamarcus, and Luke, kind of didn't put out a quarterback. So if there was a quarterback, because y'all said y'all wasn't really fresh with the class, if there was a quarterback that you could see maybe helping out, who would that be?
Yeah, like I said, Max Duggan, like, out of the group that we have, he's the one that's like, all right, he's performed well in big games. That's my biggest evaluation tool, I think, with this group. He played in the biggest game, some of the biggest games. He's been on that stage. He's a solid player. He commands his team, and he's tough. He's a tough guy. I still need to see more of a sample size with him. I need to see him perform well on Saturday. Make sure he's a gamer, like I think he may be.
I'm with you. I think with Duggan, the instincts are good. When you're in 11 on 11, he's got to make a split decision. Generally pretty good at it. So if I were drafting, I'd be most comfortable picking him because of that body of work. But then again, the sample size is not huge on Duggan either compared to some of your 5-year starters, for example. So it's just a lot to take into account.
All right, coming in, especially knowing he wasn't a starter, in preseason, right? So that's something we're taking into account.
Definitely. Don says, how y'all doing? We doing great, man. We down here at Alabama, Mobile, doing our thing. Super excited about tomorrow's game. So appreciate you, Don, for looking up and asking us that. If you guys are, as you see, we got live chats in here as well. So if any of you guys want to ask us some questions, we can definitely answer some questions that you might have about the Senior Bowl. Maybe you guys seen some of the practices, or maybe haven't seen some of the practice. You want to know some things that's going down here. Let us know. Put it in the chat room. Let's get to our next position. Obviously, it's the quarterbacks and the guys catching the ball. We got the receivers now. So starting with Sam, any receivers kind of step out to you either in the national or American team?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good receivers out there this week, but one guy that I think was the most consistent throughout the week was Jaden Reed from Michigan State. Reed was able to just look very good throughout the whole week. He's got a good frame. He's 6'2". He could go up and get the football. He looked pretty good as well, returning punts, and I think a lot of the top receivers in the Senior Bowl this week kind of struggled when they were tested to go back there. So his special teams ability and just his consistency all week, I think, has really made him the best wide receiver so far. Still here on Saturday, so expect him to get a bunch of targets tomorrow.
I'm going to go with Dontavian Wicks from Virginia. He's 6'1". He has a really good release package. He's definitely saw from the one-on-one release drills. Consistently finds a way to get open. And I feel like if you're a team that's definitely wants to improve your wide receiver room, I feel like he already has that preliminary package of size, good catch radius, and pretty much just complete good footwork. I think one of his best catches that he had was during the 11-on-11 goal line drills where he found a way to get wide open in the middle of his own in the goal line, and he was able to toe tap in the back of the end zone for a TD. So, like Sam said, the wide receiver group has been really good all week, but I think out of everybody, I think Dontavian Wicks from Virginia is probably my favorite.
Definitely. Before we get to our next person, which is Lamar, because we got a quick comment. Don wants to know, how is Avery Miller looking, and is he a second-round pick that you think? I'm going to say you, Luke. I'm going to let you answer that one.
Say that again?
Avery Miller.
I think he means Aubrey.
Aubrey Miller, yeah.
From Jackson State?
Aubrey Miller.
I wouldn't say quite that high. I think the thing that I look at with Miller is the coverage. I saw him struggle in some coverage drills against tight ends and some of those guys. So I'm not sure I'd say that high, but definitely mid-round, maybe an early day 3 kind of guy.
I'll have to say, though, I did see him put one great hit on Tajay Spears, who's been one of the better running backs this week in the season. And he put him down. One of the loudest moments all week.
Yeah, definitely. One of the moments I saw for Miller as well, he forced a fumble day 3 of his practice, so he definitely had the team going. His command of the defense is definitely evident. He's able to get guys running around, and I mean, if you follow Coach Prime stuff on YouTube and follow Jackson State, you kind of would have known that Aubrey was the guy that if it was we're talking about Travis, we're talking about Shiloh, Shador, it's always Aubrey in those conversations as well. So he's one of the guys that they lead on as a leader as well.
Definitely. All right, Lamar, as we talk about wide receivers, who you had that kind of stuck out to you?
So receiver-wise, right, we're gonna go off into day 2. Day 2's practice. My guy Tank Dell, he has been standing out all week. Kind of really made it known that he was hand over heels the best player, in my opinion, throughout the entire week. One of the best players throughout the entire week. His command, his ability to dominate his competition was on display not only throughout his season but throughout the Senior Bowl as well. In the 3 seasons he was at Houston, he led his team in receiving yards, touchdowns, receptions for 3 straight seasons. Not to mention he's one of the smaller guys on his team always. So with Tank, he's one of those guys that in my opinion, he's a surefire early draft guy. I'm not going to necessarily say first round guy. The team would benefit greatly from having him, the ability to get him in the first round, or even later in the draft, the second round maybe. But Tank Dell, and then I would have to go with Rasheed Rice. I think that consistently he has been the guy who's going to cop out for a lot of quarterbacks. So you look at Clayton Tune, where he necessarily Tank left right on the wasn't present on the last day of practice. Rasheed Rice had been one of the guys that Tune would consistently try to get the ball to because he noticed that he was always open. So getting the ball to Rasheed Rice was definitely one of the biggest points of his game. He has great hands. He's a solid receiver. Kind of looks like a running back. I mean, he has a running back type build, but he's solid. He's fluid, and I think he's a guy who definitely can go early as well. I think early second round, definitely Rice.
Luke?
Yeah, lots of good picks here. Receiver, I like. You mentioned Jaden Reed. He's one of the 9 guys here that have crossed the 20-mile-per-hour mark. He was good. Dell was one that I liked a lot. I think he's a high day too, just because the height's going to end up being a knock in size. I think a knock on him. But my pick was going to be Rashi Rice. I liked him a lot. The releases were the top thing that really impressed me day three. Dell didn't compete day three, so now spotlight goes on to some other guys. And who else is it going to be? Who's going to step up? Rice had a couple where he was, I think it was high red zone drills, able to just burn some guys, take some steps in, good releases, and that was one of the things that impressed me about him. I think he is a pro-ready receiver, and he's someone that could really contribute early for an NFL team.
I would agree as far as the pro readiness. But you mentioned in the height with Tank, I think that's the one thing that I wanted to mention as well. Despite Tank being, 5'10", his ability to get separation from anybody is immaculate, right? He was going against some of the top DBs here, SEC DBs, and his ability to separate from them was like, it's kind of like, man, step, at least step by step, right? Or at least step on, complete separation. His release is amazing. His ability to get out of the breaks, I think, is elite. More than a lot of the guys we've seen. So, I won't be surprised if he's on draft day he become like a surprise sleeper guy that can slide in the first round. But I think it'll open a lot of guys out once they watch this film.
Yeah, another guy that I was also impressed with, especially on day one, I got a lot of traction when I tweeted about him. He's definitely Puka Nakua for BYU. 6'2", really high catch radius. He's also just not a 50-50 ball guy. Like when you watch his tape over at BYU, he was doing sweeps, he was doing bubble screens, he was doing reverses. But he had an opportunity this week to show that he is a big catch kind of guy in terms of going up there, toe tapping. And I kind of feel like he's going to be the Alex Pierce of this draft, where it's like, he's going to be a good man. He's going to be a good day two guy. He's going to definitely contribute to your team right away, get you about 4 to 5 touchdowns within like inside the 20s. And he's definitely a guy that you can use on occasion on gadget plays. I don't think you're going to use him as much because I feel like the game in the NFL is a lot faster. But he's definitely a guy that's going to be on the roster within like the second or third round.
Yeah. All right, let's make sure we let's move along a little bit. Before we do that, Don says, "Great information, guys. Keep up the great work. Appreciate you, Don. You're definitely doing some great stuff, and appreciate you listening, man, for sure. Yeah, right. Appreciate it, man. All right. Obviously, actually, let's get to Don's question because he's gonna go into he's gonna help me segue right now, and that's gonna be he asking about Tulane's running back. Has he changed? Wait, does Tulane running back have any chance to get drafted? So we're gonna talk about that right now because we're gonna get right into the running backs. Start with Luke with that one. Maybe answer the question first, and then give us what you thought about the position in general.
Yeah, Tajay Spears. I remember at practice yesterday, we had a couple of people. There was a fan sitting behind it says, "Hey, who's that 22?" Didn't recognize the helmet. That's Tulane, green wave. And Spears is out there. He was running the ball well. He showcased the ability to catch out of the backfield as well. But his big playability, the explosiveness was on display on day three. So does he have a shot to get drafted? Absolutely. I think he's a great day three pick right now. I don't see him being a day two guy, but I see him being someone that, with the positional value of running backs in today's league, people look to guys that can carry the load or split a backfield later in the draft. And I think fourth, fifth round is where his name might start to come into conversations. And somewhere around the fifth, I think, is a sweet spot for Spears.
Before we get to Lamarcus, I have a quick question for you, Luke, because
Yeah.
one of the things I seen there when he was playing during practice is I wasn't sure about his pass pro. What can you kind of highlight about that when you've seen just the last few days?
Yeah, there were a few running backs that in the pass protection, like Cameron Peoples from App State, I thought did a good job. There were a couple that did. There were a few, like you mentioned, Ivan Pace and some of those guys at the linebacker position that really struggled. Spears and then Chase Brown, I thought, had a tougher time in pass protection. So that's something that as one of those three main drills that the running backs do: the pass pro, the running, the pass catching. That was a weaker spot. So that's why, again, we're not talking like top end day two. I think we're looking middle of day three as a good spot for Spears.
Marcus?
So as far as running backs, a guy that I kind of want to put the spotlight on, not the most exciting guy, but I think Evan Hull out of Northwestern kind of made a name for himself. He scored a touchdown during the short yardage run support drill. and he definitely is able to break tackles. His balance is definitely there. He's a shorter guy, and stout. And it's kind of like in today's game, you need running backs in order to get between the tackles. You want super large guys that are more likely to take a beating, but a smaller guy that can still be used for gadgets as well as get in between the tackles. He's a physical guy. He doesn't tiptoe, shy away from contact. And then the play I did see him score, he actually broke a tackle, sidestepped a guy, and then outran everybody on defense. So I think him being able to showcase that in front of a very dominant group of running backs, and then Cameron Peoples from App State, that definitely got to watch. App State, a household name. He's been a household name himself for the past 4 seasons at App State. So I think scouts will definitely be impressed when we see his performance Saturday.
Yeah. But Lamarcus definitely brought up a good point about Aaron Hall. I got an opportunity to interview him during this week, and I think he's definitely one of the more smarter players. He definitely broke down in terms of what he wanted to do in terms of improving on pass protection and more importantly going out on routes. He definitely wanted to do a little bit more of going out, possibly being like an X and Y guy, and how he watches film more on Christian McCaffrey to try to pattern his game around him. But I think outside of Tyler's experience, is definitely Kenny McIntosh has probably been the better one, the best running back throughout this entire week of Senior Bowl. And I feel like he is a 4-down back, really great. And I think out of all the running backs, he's definitely been the best in terms of pass pro blocking. And more importantly, he's definitely a dual threat in terms of going out and catching the football. And definitely has really good vision. So if you're a team that's definitely my opinion, like a Houston Texans, you have like the thumper like Damian Pierce. I feel like a McIntosh when you draft him like in the third round, I feel like he's definitely going to be a guy that's going to give you perfect relief and more importantly, almost third and longs as a screen threat.
Yeah, no, I agree with Chris. I think McIntosh probably was the best back overall here, but another guy I wanted to shine some light on was Chris Rodriguez. Me and Lamarcus were actually watching some Kentucky Georgia film this morning, and this was a guy that fell forward each and every time he got the football. I mean, if it was a 4-yard run or 11-yard run, he looked powerful and effective. And I think he's going to be a guy that could be undrafted, but play for a team and actually have a crucial role. But one thing, the last thing about Tajay, I do think he's going to be drafted because when you look at his stats this season, 11 of his last games, 9 times he went over 100. And in his last 3 games, he had 181 against Cincy, 199 against UCF, and he went for 205, 4 touchdowns against USC. I mean, the competition gets better, and he gets better like that. I think, obviously, that's a great sign for what he's going to become potentially in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great. That's a great point. I mean, Chris Rodriguez, definitely hasn't been one of the more household names, and I think that was because he missed 4 games this past year. So I think that when he was able to showcase that his ability against Georgia, I think that game against Georgia, he was kind of the bell cow of that game. And Rodriguez, like Sam said, he fell forward every time. Getting in between the tackles, he looks like a legitimate NFL running back. And I think that because, like I said, him missing 4 games, that kind of hurt him a little bit. But I think he'll definitely surprise some people. And the fact that it was against Georgia, against Jalen Carter, against that dominant defense, I think that's what kind of what made it even more special to watch him perform like that.
And one more thing, him being on this American team this week, you might not have seen a lot of great plays from him in practice. I mean, that's because he has Spears and McIntosh. I mean, that's probably why. But I think all of them will really have a fun, important game on Saturday, especially that American team. That offense might go crazy.
Definitely. All right, real quick, let me get to the chat room. We have the Game Master. He says, "Hi, Inside the Hashes. This is Luke from Luke Altro from another account. What's up, Luke? Thanks for coming in. We got 2 Lukes now, man. What's going on? What is your twin? Your son? There you go. We got another one. GC for life. Thank you. I'm not sure what that means, but thank you. All right, Sam. I know you just got some light that was all on your face. Thank God it's off you right now. I know you're feeling some relief, but shed some light. See what I did there? Shed some light on the offensive line position at the Senior Bowl this week.
I think the offensive line position honestly could have been one of the better spots for this whole group. And when you look at it, I think it might have the only first rounder that I've really seen mocked of Osiris Torrance from Florida. He's had a great week. DeJuan Jones stopped in for a little while, so he did what he could, and I give him credit. He was here yesterday as well, and he was probably getting interviewed, and he did his thing, just rang in, had a great first day, obviously. But I think there's going to be a lot of O-line that are going to be drafted from this group. One guy that I really want to highlight that I think was kind of a sleeper throughout the week was John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota. I think he had a phenomenal week at the center position, and he definitely has earned himself a boosted draft stock. He should be able to, find his way some in those second, third day potentially. So overall, offensive line have been very impressive. Same with the defensive line in this group.
Definitely. To get back on that comment, that was I believe GM Ocean. That's how you say your name. GC for life. I believe that means Gamecock for life. So I think that's what that means. So go Gamecocks. But go ahead, Chris.
I think the one thing about offensive line is nowadays is that you got to show amazing versatility. If you're a tackle, it'd be more important to be able to show your swing tackle, or if you're an interior lineman, your ability to play both left, right tackle, and occasionally center. And I think the person that's probably proved that the most is definitely Jared Patterson from Notre Dame. He's definitely shown that. I feel like back in his natural position at center, I feel like that's where he excels at. And he also has the ability to play both left and right guard. And we all know if you're getting a lot of minutes from Notre Dame, you're kind of doing the right thing. We've seen success over the past several years picking Notre Dame linemen.
Yeah, I'm going with Curtis as my guy. I'm a guy who's always going to put an eye on all school guys because definitely it's necessary. And I think that's where you get a lot of the value in the draft. It's overlooked, right? So with McClendon Curtis, he was a 5-year starter at University of Chattanooga. And if you know anything about University of Chattanooga, you have a Hall of Famer for Owens coming out of that school. Mm-hmm. And obviously it was years ago, but if you look at the resume, Chattanooga in this other conference has put out a lot of talent over the past 20 years. And I think McClendon Curtis can definitely be another guy, especially in the trenches that can come in. He's 320 pounds. He's been up to 30. He's a solid guy. He's lean. He looks like a guard. He looks like a tackle in a way, but he plays guard. So I think being able to play both would definitely be one of the things that scouts will look at. And he projected either one, and pretty much like how will he compete on Saturday? I think would be the question. Has had a solid week, but McClendon Curtis out of University of Tennessee Chattanooga is a name to watch.
Yeah, I think he kicks inside. He had a kind of rough day 1, but I felt like day 2 and day 3 continuously kind of came up. But yeah, still confident. So you like those guys. So when you take a look at this offensive line group, a lot of good ones. I know you guys talked about some high-end ones. I like those. I like DeJuan Jones. The length is crazy. Had a play where he blocked the guy in the sideline on day 1, and I think he generated so much buzz. He said, "Okay, now we have to keep going." Some guys are going.
I'm done. I don't need no more. I'm good. That's all you get today.
Hey, my pick here is going to be I've got a day 3 guy that I think has moved himself up the board from maybe low in day 3 to towards the higher end, moving towards that higher 6 into the 5th round, maybe. Wanye Morris out of Oklahoma. Went to Grayson High School in Georgia, was a 5-star recruit coming out. Tennessee, transfers to Oklahoma. Kind of moves around, finding some home under Brent Venables and that new staff at Oklahoma last year. I think he was one that day 1, day 2 is just they're not a huge standout, not a guy who's getting beat all the time. But day 3 really showed out. He was able to make some plays against some of the name brand guys on that, I believe, American team. And one of the most impressive parts, they were doing a stunt dribble. And he was working flawlessly, catching some of the stunts outside, holding some of that. So I was impressed with Morris and what he was able to do, again, holding some of those P5 name brand guys. And I think that starts to move him up the board with the size, the technicability. He's somebody that I think is very interesting now.
I'm shaking my head because I'm looking at these comments. We got Avery Collins in the comments. Because Avery, he said, "I wish you guys were there," and then he followed up with "Roll Tide." You already know. In case y'all forgot, of course, Avery have to throw that in there. Avery, we do miss you. Wish you was not here as well. We have some crazy Atlanta Falcons conversations all weekend. So yeah, maybe you can help out with that, but we'll leave that for another time. So let's get to that defensive line. Go back to the defensive side. Go ahead, Chris.
I think we're forgetting a position. I think the tight end position.
Oh, you're right. You are right. You are right. My favorite position. You are correct. So let's get into tight ends. Luke, maybe there's another guy with the same name that you might be looking at. No. Oh, okay. But go ahead.
On my standby list, Jerome, I've got Payne Durham, who's voted by his peers today. Yeah, he was a guy. And he was one of his peers, the linebacking community group, voted him as the national team tight end of the week. That says a lot, but what says, I think, even more, you look at the tape yesterday, catches the touchdown, double coverage in the corner of the end zone, gets the beat in. He's beating guys all week. He doesn't look like this laser, but he's running solid routes. Able to get himself open. He's making contested catches. Matches that with a scrappy kind of blocking ability. And Payne Durham's one. I'm not even saying, Luke Musgrave is going to be probably the top 10 in drafts out of here. But I think Payne Durham has outperformed him when you look at the play, especially again recency bias. Maybe three. Payne Durham lit it up. Multiple touchdowns when they got into that real game action, especially red zone. So Payne Durham showed yesterday that sure he can block, that's on tape, but that's a red zone threat too, and that's the guy that I think is generating enough buzz heading towards the combine. They can really move up in the day-to-day spot.
And you know what's interesting? Like you mentioned about separation and getting open. I really think for the tight end position, separation to get open is an overrated thing for the tight end position. You want a big, solid receiver who's going to use his body, tight end body to create that space. If I have a linebacker that's stretched on me, I want my tight end to be able to go up and catch it. I want my quarterback to be able to put in a position to where only my 6'5", 6'6" tight end can go get it. And I think that a lot of guys, now, this is Travis Kelce, right? He's a master of getting open. I think we discredit the fact that big solid tight end that can create that specific body. On that note, and I'm gonna let Sam kind of go to this guy, but Josh Wiley was my pick. Definitely a guy that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, no, me and Marcus talked to Wiley, great person, great guy. Cincinnati Bears actually had 15 touchdowns in his last 3 seasons, broke Travis Kelce's record. So this is a pretty accomplished player right here, and he had a great week as well. I think Luke's guy Payne Durham might have taken a little bit of the spotlight off of him, but this is a good tight end. I could definitely see multiple of these guys playing the National Football League one day, and especially Josh Wiley. I mean, he can climb the ladder. He's a big guy, 6'6", 260 pounds. And I don't know. NFL scouts would definitely like that, the way he can move and boot out and run with the football. He's a powerful guy. I think he's going to have a pretty good career.
And there's a lot of things. Like, he's a sneaky 260. Like, the fact that you said 260, I'm like, when we were interviewing him, definitely didn't, get that, but that's a good thing.
He looks like an athlete.
He looks like an athlete, like at 260. So.
You know what? He told me that too. I think he's trying to put out that message that he's playing at 260.
Yeah. Well, last thing I'll say about him is the big knack on pass blocking. But him, I think, putting on that weight's really changed things. And there's been a lot of tape this week that he's put on him taking guys down in these one-on-one drills, whether it's Andre Carter or the rest of the D-line. There's a lot of good videos of him blocking. So these tight ends, I think, really should be taken seriously.
Chris, you want to put in your take?
Everybody expected me to say Luke Musgrave, but I'm going to go with I'm actually going to be different, and I'm actually going to say Brady Willis from Oklahoma. I got an opportunity to interview him on Tuesday during breakfast. And the one thing that really stood out to me is that he told me the reason why that he felt like he needed to stay at Oklahoma to keep that locker room together after Riley left. So it's just one of those things where it's like, even though it doesn't show up in the Senior Bowl, I just like the fact that the guy in the locker room is willing to stay during the tough times and be a leader. And also the one thing I like about my tight ends, like if I don't want to be super athletic, I feel like if you're a jack of all trades, if you're good at everything, you're a really good tight end. You'll have longevity in this league. Good run blocker, good hands. He's built like an athlete, but however, he does run a 4.7 and 5.40. But the one thing in regards to my comparison, and the one thing I definitely see a lot of, and Eagles fans will definitely kind of like this comparison, I see a lot of it.
Okay, you got the Brent comp.
Really reliable hands, really good run blocker. So I feel like in an 11 or 12 personnel set, he definitely be your tight end number two. Get some good blocking in the open space, and a potential red zone threat as well.
Definitely. All right, get back to the comment section. We got Avery saying "Rise up." Oh God. And then he also says the GOAT Sam Kirk. So he gave you a little shout out over there, Sam. Yes, sir. Got fan club. All right, Mr. Fan Club, get us to the defensive side. I think I got a little anxious because I love talking defense. So let's talk the defensive line, sir.
Again, I mean, I think we talked about this a lot, just basically about how the strength of this Senior Bowl was on the interior, and I think this D line definitely proved that throughout the week. There's been a certain amount of guys for me that I really like. One guy from Auburn, Derek Hall, 4-year player, just intimidating person when you look at him out there. Him and Zach Pickens were my personal favorite throughout the week. I think both of them have extreme NFL build where they're just kind of intimidating on the offensive line against some pushback, and they're putting these good offensive lines kind of in a big test. So personally, those are two guys that I loved watching all week. But again, like a lot of great names on the D line.
I'm going to go with another guy that I interviewed with the captain of the national team, Isaiah Forsey. Every single year from the sophomore to now the senior year, he sack totals definitely increased. You definitely see the command that he definitely has, like when he comes in and shredding the defensive line. And I feel like he's definitely raised the stock in the Senior Bowl. Like he really didn't do anything to dismiss it or kind of shank it, but I definitely feel like he's going to be a high second or a low end first round pick.
Gotcha. My guy, and I actually did a scouting report on my guy before we even got to Mobile, just because he was a guy I'm like, yeah, he's a name that keeps popping up, and out of the Big Ten, Big Ten produced a lot of good defensive linemen. My guy from Northwestern, out of Tomiwa, out of Maori, all right?
Yay! I love it. Keep it practicing.
Yeah, I've been practicing. I said it so many times, like, I got to get it right, right? So, when I initially watched him, he's a guy that I'm like, all right, he's listed at 6'3", doesn't look that long, right? And it's because he's so stout and strong, right? So I think that projecting him as a typical pass rushing defensive end is not giving him the benefit. I think that he's a first, second down run stopper, can clog up a hole. He definitely can play some interior. I think he definitely can play within the 3 and the 4 technique. I'm not sure if that's what teams kind of will even consider doing, but body type wise, height wise he looks more like a Aaron Donald more so than a like a longer pass rusher. Right? He's not a traditional pass rusher, but that doesn't stop him from getting great push against taller offensive linemen. He kind of is not at an advantage, but when he's able to get in stunts, get some movement going, he's so powerful and so low, built low to the ground that he's able to get on the pads and drive guys backwards. He actually had a few plays in practice where he was putting guys back into a cooler. So I think that speaks to his ability as a defensive lineman, regardless of his specialty is pass rushing. But I definitely think he could be a solid asset for any team.
For sure. We're just checking out his tape, pushing guys out of the end zone on day 3, and then we've got, for my pick, Keanu Benson. He's one that really got off to a good start out of Wisconsin. Another guy from up north that has come in and day 1 really flashed good hands. I thought that was something. He's an inside kind of guy on the D line. His ability to swat down the hands, get inside, it's quicker than I thought he was, maybe even quicker than I expected after seeing a couple of highlights of him. And then gets in there, puts in work, and then after day 1, people start to see the buzz around him. How does he follow it up? Another good day. Day 2, day 3, a couple of wins as well against some of the interior guys like Michigan Center that was here that has been tough to beat all week. So for Keanu Benton, I've been very impressed. I think we're actually starting to look at a higher day 2 projection. We're looking maybe, in my opinion, middle of the 3rd round on his grade. I think he's a mover this week that slides up. And from what we saw, just the eye test, looking at him, the way he measured in, looks like a guy that really could continue this momentum going forward and be able to lock down a day 2 kind of spot.
Yeah, one of the guys I want to add right before, and I actually kind of wasn't really thinking about him, but I want to address the interior guy and another guy, Byron Young out of Tennessee. He's a guy that I kind of caught on too late, but after I had to go back and watch the film because really not necessarily saying he showed up all week, but whenever he was in, my guy is a mover. Like he can get around the edge so fast. Reminds me of kind of like a Dante. Dante Fowler. Yeah, I almost said Dante. My guy Dante Fowler from Florida. He's so athletic that he turns that corner and gets flat now. And I think that's a trait that every scout is looking for. They want a guy who can bend the corner and get flattened out. Playing the SEC, so he's going to get some of the best O-linemen that you're going to face. And I think that scouts, depending on how well you perform on Saturday, I know that for a fact they're have odds on him, but going into Saturday, if he can really get a couple of sacks, even though we can't really sack the quarterback, right? Tag off the quarterback, get to him, he'll definitely show a lot. And most notably, he had 7 sacks in 2022. So I think a lot of scouts will have eyes on the guy.
And another guy that I want to highlight is definitely Zach Pickens from South Carolina. And he is every bit of that 6'4", 300-pound frame. But the one thing that really impressed me is the quick hands that he has coming off the line of scrimmage. And if you're that big and you're able to move your hands that quickly, you'll be able to definitely disrupt any sort of backfield coming in the grass.
All right, let's get into the linebackers, man, because I see some good linebacker play. I'm super excited to talk about it. So let's start with you, Luke. Who was highlighted in your eyes?
Yeah, there were some good ones. I do think linebacker, outside of quarterback, was probably the thinnest spot that we saw here. Thinner than quarterback, maybe even. When you look at that group, there were some guys coming in that I thought really would be some high-level performers. Some of those edge, outside linebacker types. I was disappointed on several of them. One of the ones that I thought was intriguing was Ivan Pace Jr. out of Cincinnati. He was one of them that he told me. I asked him, we're doing a little interview post-practice. I said, what's your message? What do we need to know about you? He says, I want everybody to know, don't judge me by my height. He's somewhere around 5'10" in that range. And for Pace, he's someone that we wondered coming in the week. He did some good stuff at Cincy, but can he cover? Can he cover guys at this level? And we found very quickly that he can. We've got some pass breakup tape from day 3 where he's kind of sitting in the running back's hip pocket, swings around, bats it down, and then just jogs it off, makes it look easy. And he felt very comfortable in space having to cover. So with Pace, that was impressive, combined with the body of work of a guy that fills gaps, plays in the run game. We've already seen that all at Cincinnati. But adding some of the things on tape that we were curious what we could see, how big of a deal would these measurables be? But Pace is someone that I think is a very draftable linebacker, probably sitting in mid to late day 2 range, but a player that I think can develop and really contribute, especially if you can just get past the fact that he's maybe not your prototypical size that you look for now.
Yeah, I want to jump into Pace real quick because I got to interview him myself down here, and the guy is not lacking any type of confidence. This guy is confident. I asked him, what you want to improve in here? It's like, it's nothing I want to show. It's nothing I want to improve. I'm like, at first I was just like thrown off by it, but he was like, no, because I'm just here to show off what I'm already doing. The only thing I need y'all to do is not worry about my size. And another thing he said, I asked him, hey, what you going to do on Saturday? Maybe 10 tackles, a sack maybe. He said, let me do a little bit better. Let me get 3 sacks, 15 tackles. Now, in an all-star game, I don't know how possible that is, but I love the confidence in him, and I love how he reacted to that. So, LaMarcus, anybody kind of jump off to you?
Isaiah Land out of FAMU. He's a guy that, like I said, my small school guys. I want to see. He's great size. Great size. He's a very tall kid. He's fast, athletic. I really just want to see how well he can kind of slow his game down. Right. Obviously, he's learning a new system. So can he make those immediate reads? Like, can he get downhill once he reads the guard? Can he get across the top of the block? In coverage, I think he's a good coverage guy. But the awareness and coverage, I think, can definitely be one of those things where, maybe not the best. But I think watching Saturday would be a big test for him. And just see if the guy's a gamer. Like I said, he has the measurables, he got the size, he got the speed. Just want to see if he can put it all together in the game.
Definitely.
For me, I think we kind of said it best. It's kind of a thin position, and honestly, overall in the draft, I feel like this linebacker group is not that good, especially drafting in the first round. But if there is a guy that I'm going to at least try to draft, probably in the top half of the draft, a guy that definitely raises the stock is definitely Deion Haley from Washington State. He absolutely was the best linebacker out this entire group all this week in Louisville, and more importantly, he was a demon in the pass rows. Quick feet, didn't get shaken by any sort of hesitation on the flats or the angle routes that the running backs were taking during the drills. And he has a 77.5-foot wingspan. So every single pass breakup I saw, you saw those long arms of the law just be able to break up any sort of pass, especially with Evan Hall, who's a really good pass catcher in the backfield, being able to break up those passes. So I feel like if anybody's improved their stock, and it's probably going to be a second-round guy in a really thin linebacker class, it's definitely him.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my player, too. I just think what he's done this week, specifically in the pass coverage portion of practices, has been very impressive. And I think that's what NFL scouts are looking to see right now. They want to know if these linebackers can cover these fast running backs and these tight ends out of the backfield. And that's what Henley did all week. I don't think I saw him lose one 1v1 rep in the pass coverage. And even when he was rushing, going against Chase Brown and the other running backs, he looked quick. And I'll just comment on one other guy that I think could be one of those types of players as well. Amari Overshawn from Texas. We talked about him all week. Again, just kind of a freak of nature type of guy, just a baller. He was all over the place, and he's just not someone you want to see on the other side of the line. I think his, his stature and speed alone can definitely find himself in a day 3 scenario.
All right, let's get to my favorite position, and the Marcus played the position too, the cornerback position, the best position in football. You already know. Sam, let's start off with you. Any cornerbacks that kind of stood out to you this week?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with Florida State's Jamie Robinson. I think he plays a little safety as well, but they have a lot out at corner this week, and just him playing as physical as he did in the one-on-one drills was really like you could hear the crowd kind of go ooh and ah. He was just in coverage. This man's using his hands and jamming receivers, making them work just to get to that outside edge, and by the time they're out of bounds, and they're still right on him. So I think he's the most complete most complete player in the secondary at the Senior Bowl this year, and he got voted on that by his teammates this morning. I really do think Jamie Robinson's got a great career ahead, and he kind of does represent that Florida State mold that they've always had in their secondary as well. So hats off to Jamie Robinson. He's had a phenomenal week.
Real quick, I want to get to the comment. You got a comment from Wilhelmina. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. Rook, she says, so proud of the outstanding team of statisticians.
There we go.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Chris.
Yeah, Jamie Robinson is definitely one of my other picks as well. The one thing that you knew coming into this, especially Washington State and Florida State, he's a surefire tackler. So this week I wanted to see him during the one-on-one drills to see how well he did in coverage, and he definitely, held his own. I feel like definitely if he goes into the right system with the right defensive coordinator, right D-backs coach, I feel like he'll definitely shine more. But another guy who, in my opinion, shined the most was from the American team, and that's Tyreek Stevenson from Miami. And the one thing that I saw from him is that he lacks zero confidence. That he has no problem at all, being confident, getting into your face, and more importantly, going press coverage on you. And I feel like during the one-on-one release drills, I feel like he's probably the cornerback that shined the most out of it. He's definitely the most vocal one out there as well. And more importantly, he carries that swagger because, when you're in front of the University of Miami, you definitely got to have that air of confidence with you.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna start with my safety, and then I'm gonna go to my standout corner.
Who's gonna safety still?
Safety too.
Yeah,
Okay,
so go corner.
So corners. So it's a couple of guys I want to really highlight. Julius Brents from Kansas. I think K-State. I think he's a guy who is very long. Obviously, he's 6'4". So people are gonna like, okay, cool, we got another one, right? But then you look at his technical ability. I always look at guys' feet before I look at their hands, right? If I can have a corner that can shadow a receiver, kind of stay step for step, get in and out of breaks, and still be able to play the ball at the top of the route, I think you hit a jackpot when you get that. For him to be 6'4", have technical ability, be able to break on routes underneath, and then still run vertical with anybody on the field, I think that's what gives him an edge. His day 2 practice, day 1's practice was great. He had a bunch of plays where he was just kind of all over guys, blanketed over guys, and showing how he got his breaks. So that's Julius Brents. And then we have Jay Ward of LSU. Not a guy who's super high on the draft boards, but he's another guy who's super lengthy, and he seems to have really good feet underneath. Gets in and out of breaks. For tall guys, I always look like how fast are they able to sink their hips, and guys who are tall, shorter, they're obviously already there. And so kind of like with Jay Ward and with Julius Brents, they definitely move well for taller DBs, and that's kind of the prototype now. So,
All right. A lot of names here, a lot of names that I would have mentioned, but for me, I'll bring up someone new. Tyreek Stevenson would have been my pick if I were first, but for me, I'll go Caillou Blue Kelly out of Stanford. Day 2 was his day, and at the end of the day, end of the session, he had a pick, returned it back deep into celebrating. Everybody runs down the field, leaves a good taste in everyone's mouth, even so to where, for me, I'm thinking he's a borderline top 100 guy in this class when you look at overall prospects. So we're looking maybe, edge of day 2, into day 3, early type of stuff here. So for Kelly, the coverage ability, he's not the bulkiest kind of guy, but he's somebody that sticks well with his receivers and is able to break on the ball and show off some ball skills, especially on day two. So Kelly and some of the Stanford guys, even at receiver, Michael Wilson was good. Those were guys that didn't get a ton of buzz. Stanford didn't have a great season as a team, but individually, some of those skill guys on offense and then, of course, you go defensively with Caillou, I thought he had some really good days of practice, and there's even some buzz coming from national outlets around him as well.
Definitely, yeah. I like the blue. I like the blue talk because I think he did really well in day 3 as well. It started off on day 2 and ended it well on day 2 and just carried on to game 3. Luke, let's start you off with the safeties. Anybody that stands out to you on the safety position?
Yeah, I know we already talked to Decent bit about Jamie Robinson. I see him as a safety type in the NFL. He would be a pick. He's South Georgia, got that dog in him kind of type of guy. So
He had to do it. He had to do
I
it.
had to
He
do
just
it.
had to do it.
I had, got to give him a shout out. Lee County, Jerome. I know you know the guys over there.
Yeah,
so Robinson's a good one. I also would say Chris Smith from Georgia. There were some ups and downs. There were a couple of times where there was at least one time where there was a PI penalty in coverage, but he's an aggressive guy. He is a physical coverage guy, and a lot of times that paid off for him. Didn't see many times where he was getting beat or in that kind of situation, and they would even line him up in some press moves, and Chris Smith is able to come through. So the 2-time national champion, lots of starting experience, lots of tape on him. I think we're looking at a maybe later day 2 kind of selection, 3rd round type for Smith, especially after his body of work here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the older guy. And not knock on the guy, right? Because you had COVID, you had extra years they were giving guys, so kind of really experienced, right? He's been in college since I was in college, and that was 3-4 years ago. So we have Daniel Scott out of Cal. He's a guy whose experience is not at a short. He's started for 4 or 5 years, has had production every single season he's been there, and it's only gotten better. He's one of those guys where he reminds me a little bit of Eric Weddle. Has that burst, right? Has that headiness where I can get to anywhere on the field. I'm not a tall guy, but he's so athletic that he can get to anywhere on the field and then track the ball. When I'm watching safeties, how well do they get to the middle of the field? How well are they able to track and read the quarterback and make a split decision to go down? Obviously, in the NFL, things are happening faster. So as a safety, if you second guess your reads, you're never going to get there. So he's a guy who sees what he sees and goes, and that's how you make plays, especially on the next level. So I think Daniel Scott is a guy to continue to watch. And then, with him being so experienced, the team definitely have a guy like him start day 1. So I think he can get into role and have some success for sure.
I'm going to go with J.L. Skinner from Boise State. And the one thing that kind of stood out to me is I feel like the more he got away from the line of scrimmage instead of backing up the coverage, I feel like the more he struggled. I feel like definitely going into this league, I feel like he is going to be a mid-round pick, probably like late 3rd, 4th round pick. But I feel like he's going to be more like a box safety kind of guy. So he's 6'4". That's really tall for a safety. So I feel like down the line, I feel like he might be converted to like that linebacker, box safety kind of role. But I've loved the physicality of him. Yeah.
Not to go all the way back to the running back position, but I'm going to mention Chase Brown and Sidney Brown. What a phenomenal week for those 2 brothers. And Sidney Brown, I think, is a surprise player for a lot of these people. And this is a safety that's going to be a 3-down safety in the National Football. He can play in the box. He's good as a deep safety as well. Very athletic, good tracking the ball, all-around athlete. This is a tough kid, and you can just see it all throughout practice the whole week. I really do see him as a pretty good NFL pro, and I really do think it helps when him and his brother both can be going there together. You can see them walking around together, they motivate each other. I think that's a theme now in the league. Brothers are going together, brothers motivate each other. Diggs, Kelsey's, it does happen. So I really do like these 2 from Illinois, and I think they made a great splash in the Senior Bowl.
Awesome. Now, we want to give a little shout out to some of the special teams guys. We don't want to leave them out. We don't leave any kickers and punters out, any special team guys. So real quick, anything pops out to you with special teams? I'm sorry, Sam on this one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Behringer did a great job just being able to punt all week. It's tough when you're down there and everyone else, all the eyes are on the opposite side of the field. It's definitely a tough feeling, but for him just to be out there all week, hammering punts and consistently doing his thing, I think it's going to make him prepare for tomorrow, and that's really when his time to shine is. And again, it's a tough it's probably a little bit tough, but I do think there's some talent here, especially in the special teams department.
We want to give a shout out to Chad Ryland, the kicker from Maryland. Got an opportunity to interview him. Really, really fun guy. He had an opportunity to transfer over to Eastern Michigan and Maryland, had a really good season there. But a guy that I feel like is definitely going to make a splash in special teams in the NFL is definitely probably Riley Moss from Iowa. I feel like the speed that he definitely clocked in, is probably one of the fastest times out of any corner. And I feel like he definitely has that New England Patriot gunner kind of role, kind of similar to what Matthew Slater was for them for like all these years. So I feel like if anybody's going to be like a premier special teams player, I feel like it's going to be him.
Yeah, and I think with Jamie Robinson, I think that he can be a guy special teams wise that can have some return ability, super explosive, and then looking at Rebecca Alberger, he's a guy who never know where opponents are gonna go, but him being one of the best in the nation, he has the ability obviously, so just kind of see if the team picks him up how can he go.
Not to cut you off from Marcus, but another guy that me and you talked about, Trey Tucker, I think. It's Cincinnati wide receiver. I think he does have some special teams ability as well. He's very shifty, a little bit smaller of a receiver. Definitely see him returning punts back there if he can handle it.
Yeah, he was a guy I definitely paid attention to late, but his shiftiness coming out of breaks. I mean, even as a receiver, you watch him like he's definitely able to get out of routes, and having that kind of shiftiness is definitely he has an elite level of shiftiness, but like you're saying, maybe more useful, especially teams actually offense.
Jerome, I'm curious. What'd you think of Ronnie Bell? Can he be a special teams guy?
I think he can. I think he can. Yeah, he's definitely explosive, man. Ronnie,
That's the guy.
it's my guy, and I've been telling you guys that all week. It's not his ability. He got the ability. He's fast. He can be electric with the ball in his hands. It's just he had a problem with catching sometimes. So I hope he really cleans that up. But like if you can put him on special teams and have him fill the punt and fill the cleaning and he can go, I think he can beat somebody. He can definitely beat somebody.
Yeah.
One thing about Ronnie Bell is like, especially yesterday's practice, every time the ball was thrown to him, he drew a flag.
Yeah,
he gets open.
Yeah.
He definitely gets open.
I think we did him a little dirty not mentioning him in the receivers category, but he did have a very good week, and almost every time you took your eye off of him, he'd come right back in the picture and get the ball. So shout out Ronnie Bell as well. Had a great week.
Yeah, and this week was really good for him because he really never got an opportunity to showcase himself really in the regular season. I can probably count the amount of times on your hands his name was specifically mentioned. So an opportunity to come down here with top tier senior talent and for him to showcase more so himself as opposed to the team definitely raised his stock.
All right, last topic before we get off. Tomorrow is the game. Expectations, sleeper guy, your favorite guy for tomorrow. Let's just do favorite guy for tomorrow. Who's gonna be that MVP? Go ahead, Luke. Let me go for you first.
Ooh, sleeper guy for tomorrow. All right, I'm looking at if we go offense, defense. Is that cool? All right, let's go offense. I'm looking at Cameron Peoples, the running back position, to be somebody that. Sure, we've talked about plenty of other guys, but Peoples in the big games, talked about some of the upsets from App State this past season. He was a guy that maybe isn't a household name, but he was a much bigger name because of the way that he showed up on bigger stages. When they were in these national TV games, he showed up. So I know in some of these skill spots, there's a lot of guys and not a ton of carries to go around all the time, but I think he's a guy that could break one off tomorrow on the offensive side. So I'll go Peoples. I think he's a big game type.
I don't want to take the cop out and say Rice, because I spoke already so much about him. But I'm gonna say the guy I feel like will be the most dominant splash plays, gonna have the most, just because of the nature of these quarterbacks are learning, right? They're learning a new system. Deep balls are going to be at a minimum this week, in this game. The tight end position is going to be essential. I think Payne Durham will be the biggest topic. He's going to have to be a safety blanket for a lot of these quarterbacks. So as long as Payne Durham's in the game, I think that's what the quarterbacks will be looking for. Expect to see Payne Durham be the lead.
Because of the fact that he is in his hometown and he wants the opportunity to showcase in front of his friends and family. Offensive MVP, probably going to go Malik Cunningham. Last year we saw like a giant run by Malik Willis. I think Cunningham's probably going to do the same in that regard. Defensive MVP, I feel like these kind of games over the last few years kind of lean towards more defensive side as opposed to the ability to get to the quarterback. So defensive MVP, I'm probably going to go Will McDonald from Iowa State.
Yeah, for me, it's already a guy we talked about. I think Tajay Spears is in for a big day tomorrow. I think he's really been on fire. Even when Chris talked to him, you could just see how he looked in the face. He's ready to game. He looked excited and he wants to be out there doing his thing. And I think he can have a really huge day tomorrow, taking advantage of that national team defense.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my name in the hat as well because this is a guy that literally just flew in and started dominating as soon as he got here. Roshan Johnson, man, he came in and just was an instant spark, man. So I'm expecting some big stuff out of him on Saturday. I don't know much about him prior to being out here, but he came in and he just instantly was like, "I'm here, I arrived." Y'all been waiting for me this whole time, so I'm definitely expecting him to do some more stuff on Saturday, especially that he get more knowledge of the playbook and stuff like that. So I'm expecting some good stuff out of him as well.
And definitely with the fact that not only was he scoring touchdowns, running the ball, he was catching the ball. And I think he had actually a reception touchdown in the back of the end zone. I think yesterday's practice. So definitely scouts like to see that kind of stuff. There.
And it wasn't like your typical catch. It was like the ball was like back in the end zone. The ball was going away from you, and he just snapped it.
Again, he was able to block too. I mean, he's a big back, and I think they might have him in on their passing now just in order to be, chip and go type of guy. So I gotta give credit to him coming in late, just doing his thing.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys for checking us out at the Senior Bowl. Again, we are at this convention center right now, doing this live at Mobile. So we appreciate every single person being in here. I appreciate all our viewers, all our commenters. If you want to be in here or commenting, you can go right down there at the QR code and just scan that and like and subscribe us on YouTube so you can have a conversation with each other. If you can't watch this live, obviously, if you're watching it now, probably not watching live. So you can go in the comment section and we will answer any comments that you may have throughout the game, after the game, whenever. Also, make sure you're locked in with us also because we will be posting all our interviews on here. We interviewed over 30-something players, so make sure you check that out. We want to thank our special guest, Mr. Luke Winslow, as well. Luke, if you don't mind plugging in your socials as well for us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, my name's Luke Winslow, so all my tags are just at Luke Winslow, LukeWinstel. Follow me there, hit me up. DMs are always open.
All right, man. Whoa, sign them DMs, man. Yeah, I think he's trying to get those ladies, man. But guys, thank you so much again for checking us out at Inside the Hatch at the Senior Bowl live right now. I am your humble host, Ron Jones, and we got Sam Kurt right over there. We got Chris Thomas, LaMarcus Bailey, and the aforementioned Mr. Luke Winslow. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Have a great one, and see you on the next one. Peace. The awkward moment when you don't turn it off.